Episode 9 of I Called That. How we doing, everybody? I'm Martin Montana. He's Charlie Marlow. Thanks for hanging with us. Charlie, it's almost Vegas time, but before we go there, MLB, they did it somehow.
Yeah, how about Major League Baseball with all of these deadlines? They had 4 deadlines. If you don't come to a deal, we're going to cancel the first week of the season. And they did that, by the way. And then the next week they said, hey, now we're canceling the second week of the season. Oh, but wait, the next day they actually came to an agreement and we're going to have a full 162 games, which is fantastic in the end. But I just chuckled at the fact that, that's not really great leverage. I swear I'm going to cancel a game. If you don't, I swear to you, I'm going to cancel another game and then, full season. So in the end, I guess we complained about a lot over 3 months, but if we're getting 162, can we really be that mad about it?
I don't think so. I mean, it's basically like the parent, when the kid calls their bluff, right? You do that again, you're going to be grounded. You're not going to go out for 2 weeks. They do it again. Let's get some ice cream, call it a day. That's what it is. Look, I'm glad too. It's over. Just start playing the games, move on. I have a follow-up though. Have they bumped then? Is the whole timeline pushed back? Or are they trying to like mega squeeze all these games in roughly the same timeline? Because they already travel a ton to get it done anyways.
Yeah. So I know specifically the Cardinals, they were supposed to open up on the road, I believe, March 31st. So they were going to play the first couple series on the road. They were going to have their home opener April 7th. And so now opening day for the Cardinals is April 7th. So I'm pretty sure they haven't messed with any of the Cardinals home games because you're still going to have that series. It's just going to be true opening day instead of the home opener. And then the Cardinals have to make up those prior games with some off days. I think it's Pittsburgh and Chicago Cubs. They have to make up those games throughout the season with a couple doubleheaders here and some off days here and there. What I'm interested also from you is, and I'm not just saying this because I live here. I truly believe St. Louis, Missouri is baseball town USA. It just eats, lives, breathes baseball. So they figure it out with the lockout. Then you have free agency. The Cardinals signed Drew Verhagen, who nobody's heard of, all due respect. They just signed Nick Whitgren. And I'm telling you, we come on the radio today and we're breaking down Drew Verhagen. We're breaking down Nick Whitgren. They might be interested in Trevor Story. I'm not so sure. Albert Pujols, could he come back for a final swan song, hit his 700th homer, and have that walk off into the sunset? So for you, I know you're a Red Sox fan, a Sox fan, but you live in Tampa Bay Rays Nation. So I'm guessing you're not as excited about Drew Verhagen and Nick Whitgren. So what's your baseball kind of level of interest?
I'm excited to have it back. So I'll say this. Talking to all the people around here, my uncle has lived in Tampa forever, right? He lives like 20 minutes from me. He would tell me, because he's a diehard Rays fan, and he's been. I go back and I'm like, he's always rocking Rays gear. He's always watching the games. But he is, I think we had this conversation at one point. The general idea here is that people don't go to the stadium, hence lowest attendance, right? Probably in the league, but their TV ratings are one of the highest. So there are fans. They're watching it nonstop when it comes on. They just don't want to go or don't like the experience at Tropicana Field. So I haven't even been there. I will go there. I will go see a game there and see, other than from afar, when you see the ball hit the roof and you're like, that's not supposed to happen. I know that. I don't need to watch a lot of baseball to know that that's not like a great design. I want to see what it's like in there. Cause I know the general idea is like, it's very drab. It's just kind of boring. It's old. I'm going to go make up my own mind. I'm going to go there and it's, for people outside, it's in St. Pete. So for me, that's an hour. I'm a little north, I'm call it 15 minutes northwest of the airport. It's about an hour for me to get there.
Oh,
and
wow.
Not in heavy traffic, trying to get over the bridge to get over there. So that's a factor, of course, but doesn't mean it can't work. I just know with all this talk about them not getting a stadium deal, them proposing multiple ideas in and around Tampa, Ybor City, all these things, it gets shot down. then the proposal to split time with Montreal. I mean, as a general fan of a team, I'd be shocked. I'd love to hear a fan who's like, that's a great idea. There's nobody in St. Louis. If you're like, hey guys, we're going to split time between us and Vancouver, that they're going to be like, that's fantastic. I love that idea. No one's going to like that. So it just seems like a real mess, right? To keep it clean here. It seems like a mess. And I'm curious to go check out the stadium. So my interest, to come back full circle, my interest is high. I like that baseball's back. I will go to a Rays game here and have a full report on what exactly is going on over there. Because as of right now, all I know is I hear things. And in general, I don't hear rave reviews of people being like, you got to go. It's such an exciting experience over there.
Yeah. And I'm not the person, I never dump on other cities. I even give ballparks, and I've gotten to go to a lot of different NFL, specifically NFL and Major League Baseball stadiums over the years, just from covering sports and some hockey as well, covering sports in St. Louis the last 14 years. I will say I've never been to the Trop in person. On TV, it doesn't show well. You just watch it. It doesn't feel like a baseball atmosphere. It feels like an old school dome. Or you know how when there'll be a tour where a bunch of Major League players will go to Japan and they'll play in one of these kind of domes. It just doesn't look the same as a Major League ballpark. And that's what I get.
Like the last stadium that Hideki Matsui played in. You know what I mean? Like, right. That's a great analogy. To me, it literally like the shots when they do pans and stuff. Obviously they try to avoid it because there's 8,000 people there, but when they do it, I don't know why. It reminds me of just a mall, like an indoor mall. The lighting has that like too bright, but very sterile hospital-ish lighting. It just doesn't look exciting in there. It doesn't have this vibe of energy and all that. So, hey, I'll hold judgment. I'll go there in person. I'll snap some videos and some pics, and I'll let you know. Cause I'm like you, I'll make up my own mind. I don't need, your Yelp review to tell me about, Outback Steakhouse. Like I'll just go. And if I don't like it, I don't like it. If I like it, I'll make up my own mind.
And that's where I think it's a generational thing, because if the Trop would have been around 30 years ago, it would have made sense. Because think about us. We're growing up, we're watching games at the old Astrodome, or you're watching games. Remember that 91 World Series, Twins Braves? You're watching the Metrodome. It kind of made sense, even though it was weird. You had the ball bouncing off the turf. You had the weird ceilings and all that, whatever the hell that is. And the Trop reminds me of that. And then you bring up, it just doesn't make sense in 2022. It made sense in the 70s, 80s, up until the early 90s. Then they started building those more retro parks like Ballpark in Arlington, Camden Yards, Jacobs Field, or whatever the hell they call it now, Progressive Field in Cleveland. But no, you made me laugh earlier when you just don't think about the fact that you hit a baseball and it goes off some type of scaffolding and you have to make a rule. That's basically when we're kids, you're in the backyard, like, okay, if you hit the pine tree, it's a double. If you hit the leaves, all right, it's a ground rule double. That shouldn't happen in Major League Baseball.
I mean, it's like watching the Cowboys, right? When the punter hits it off the 80-yard, scoreboard or whatever that Jerry built. And you're like, come on. If there's not a more ironic series of events of like, let me flaunt, you know what I mean? It's basically like, it's like taking, like a quadruple stretch limo, but the rims you put are so big that the tires won't even turn. You know what I mean? Like, it's not usable. Like I'm so happy that you have so much money, but it's not functional. And obviously I don't think this stadium was a function of too much money. It's probably the other way. But it's just not a good look. You do have to catch up. I will say that any stadium experience, I mean, that's your showpiece. You want people to come in there and leave, and especially your home fans, and be proud of what's going on. There's nothing worse than, right, having the old Shea Stadium when other people are moving on. I mean, everybody revamps. So they're due. I mean, I hope they do it here and I hope they stay. I do, but they got to do something. They got to figure something out.
And it's funny you bring up the huge Jumbotron at Jerry's World. So over the years, I think I went to 3 games there. I saw the Rams play the Cowboys 2 different times. And then I got to go to the national championship game, the first ever college football playoff championship game where Ohio State beat Oregon. And I'm telling you, that screen, you see it on TV, and then you see it in real life. It is so big, you forget to watch the field because
it is. I've been there too. It is massive. I have a good friend who lives in Dallas. He took me, and we had seats where when you're in the seats, right? I mean, it covers too much. It just covers too much of your visual. And I think we weren't lower level for those seats. We were mid, right? The mid tier. So when they're, and we were like, I call it like 20, 30 yard line. So when they're at the other end, your views, I mean, it's so limited. I'm like, you can barely, you're kind of like, I get a general idea of what's going on. So, right. You just watch the giant TV. And the only reason that changed is when we moved around and he had access to whatever club lounge downstairs or the tunnel the players walk through and all that. And that's a different thing. Cause then you're down there and you're just looking around and everything else. So, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but when it's that gigantic, right? Isn't it like do I look at the little couple ants down there or do I just sit back and watch Netflix up here?
And that's where, so I brought this up because they'll show shots of the cheerleaders, right? You got Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. And I'm telling you, the picture quality, and it's so big, like you can see everything. So when they take a close up of the cheerleaders and they're jumping and bouncing around and doing their cheers, you almost feel like you're watching softcore pornography because the Jumbotron is so big and the picture's so great and it's so up close. You're watching it and you're seeing these women doing their cheers, but there's a lot of things moving around and everything. And you're almost like, am I allowed to watch this?
Right. They may get a call from Cinemax after dark, right? Like, can we just get that footage? Just whatever the guy, right? The bald guy, whatever he shot, just send us that file. We'll make that stretch into 20 minutes. It's a good point. And you know what I wonder about the generic cheerleader shot that happens across all of sports? Is it a producer? Is it a booth guy going like, relaying down to the field, like, hey, let's get a shot of the cheerleaders? Or is it, a guy, I'm going to, make an assumption it's a guy, videographer, right? Is it just him who he's down there? Yes, he covers action that's near him, but he's 80% on the cheerleaders. Which way does that play out? Is it a directive or is it just a guy, leaning that way?
I'm guessing nowadays you probably have so many cameras at a game for just a regular NFL game, let alone Super Bowl. I don't even know how many cameras they have, but yeah, I'm guessing there's somebody who his sole job is to just kind of make sure he's there at all times to get that cheerleader shot. That's probably a decent gig.
That's a decent gig. You're rotating around, he's doing Division III men's lacrosse. And then the next weekend he's on the cheerleader cam. I mean, that's the ups and downs, right?
And so here's a just kind of behind the scenes type thing. I don't know if this happens anymore because look, we live in a different world, but I'm telling you back in the day, and this is even when I first started in TV. So go back 15, 20 years. If you somehow were able to watch a live feed of a game. So for whatever reason, let's say at the station, we were recording, but we had a different feed than the broadcast feed. So instead of going to commercial and seeing the commercials, you could see what the camera folks were doing. And I
already know what you're talking about. And I'm going to add and let you finish your story that you remember early days of satellite when you would get that direct sports. So when they would cut to commercial, it would stay and you would see the cameras, but you'd also just hear the booth guys chopping it up because they wouldn't cut that and they couldn't edit it. I mean, maybe they had a hot button somewhere, but you would hear them just banter and then come back into the game. So yes.
Yeah. And all they're doing is finding good looking women. That's all they're doing is finding good looking crowd shots of women. And that was what they used to be showing during the commercial breaks, like all the time.
Yeah. That's 5 to 10 lawsuits a game right now. But remember folks, this is the 80s and 90s. Okay. It's a different era. All right. There's a different era. I don't want to hear any bad comments. It's a different era. All right. Moving on. Tom Brady, man, what did that big decision that he was mulling over? Did that last a long time, huh? He's back in action. Your initial reaction, Charlie Marlow.
Well, I mean, I almost want to throw this back to you because you're Mr. Tampa Bay down there. So I'm sure there's parades going on in the streets. I find it funny because why did he have to retire in the first place?
I have no idea.
A month ago. So, and then other people were ripping on him yesterday, not me, but basically, oh, why'd you do this on Selection Sunday? They had to basically break the news during the selection show. And I get the timing yesterday because free agency starts today, whenever the discussions start. So if you're Tom Brady and you want to come back, you want all your crew, whoever it is, I don't know who's a free agent, but if it's Gronk, Leonard Fournette, whoever, you want to let these guys know, hey, I'm coming back. Let's get the gang back together. But so Tom Brady said, my place is still on the field, but you didn't miss anything. This is the time of year you weren't doing anything. I can understand if training camp happened, you're like, man, I feel like I should be there. Or if 5 games in the season, you missed it, man, I need to be playing on Sundays. I mean, were his kids, were they so annoying to him that the last 2-3 weeks? I mean, because he wasn't doing anything. So
that's exactly what it was. He went on vacation for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Came home for another week, and it's just like, okay, time to go back to work. Thanks so much. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I agree that he just had to rush to this, announce it so quickly after the season ended, so quickly. Take your time, let the Super Bowl end, dip around for just slow it down. And then he has to pump, it was almost like the fastest on both sides, right? The fastest to make the announcement and the fastest retraction. He didn't even wait to, jump in on an 8-2 team or something like that, where you see that move happen. He's like, okay, all right, I lied. He's the MLB of announcements and drawing a hard line. Can we make that analogy?
Yes, I like that. And so here's where also the conspiracy theorist in me, I feel like that he and the Bucks both knew about this the last several weeks. And the reason I say that is, look at what happened last week. So the Bucks, depending on what happens in free agency, they're a pretty ready to win team, right? I mean, whether it was Tom Brady coming back or whether it was, let's say, adding whoever, whether it was Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, whoever was discussed. So last week, there was a ton of quarterback movement or lack of movement that created other movements because obviously Aaron Rodgers resigns. Russell Wilson gets traded to the Broncos. And then Carson Wentz gets traded to to
my squad, the Commanders. We can talk about that. Okay.
Right. So, but if I'm the Bucks, I'm another spot that is probably a good quarterback away, whoever it is, from being back as a legit playoff contender, Super Bowl contender. So I just wondered, because if they 100% knew Tom Brady wasn't coming back, I think they might have been more active in the trade market last week. So that leads me to believe that there's probably some dialogue over the last couple of weeks, and they're like, hey, we're going to probably make this happen. So let's not get another quarterback via trade. Let's either wait for Tom, or if Tom doesn't come back, we can do it through the draft. But I think the Bucks probably knew this was coming.
So basically somewhere Mitch Trubisky was like, come on, man. He thought he was coming down to Southern Florida. I don't know about your conspiracy theory, because what advantage is that to Tampa Bay? Unless you're saying that he tipped them off like, hey, I'm going to come back, so just hold off. And that's possible, because I read something yesterday, like, Gronk might go to Buffalo, team up with Josh Allen. He's originally from there. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, I'd watch that. That's pretty cool. But if TB's back, then, I'm sure Gronk will come back for another year with him.
Right. And so Tom Brady, you probably heard Bruce Arians say this the other day, that, Tom Brady's under contract. So Tom Brady couldn't go wherever he wanted. And Bruce Arians even said, no, we're not going to let him out. And he was kind of half joking, but I don't think they were going to let him out. And so all I'm saying is, it would not surprise me if last week, if the Bucks were saying, look, if Tom's not coming back, let's say they went after Russell Wilson. I don't know, but I would have. Let's say they want to go after Carson Wentz, who I don't think is very good. But let's just say, in theory, they were thinking about that. I make a call to Tom first, and I go, Tom, look, man, it's been a couple weeks. We know you might have been waffling. We just want to make sure 100%. Are you not coming back? Because if you're not, we're going to start looking at other quarterbacks. I feel like that call has to be made.
I mean, I would make it. I would make it if I'm in that front office and just say, I know, hey, we know. Like, it's like he's calling a date. Like, look, I know you said you weren't interested. I want to just check one last time if you want to maybe, go out to dinner or whatever. And then they change their mind. Okay, you're right. I was kidding. I mean, look, I would make that call too. You have to make the call. Why not? And if he says, you know what, give me another week, I'll let you guys know before free agency. I think if you leave the conversation like that, you're like, well, that's encouraging. That's like 70-30 that he's coming back. The fact that he would even acknowledge like it's not real. I don't know. It was just so rushed. This whole decision was so rushed. But I'm happy to have him back. The city of Tampa is happy to have him back. I mean, they got they got a good squad. I mean, that's another potential long playoff run Super Bowl appearance. I like it.
Yeah, and the NFL is better off when Tom Brady's in it. And by the
100%.
way, we're not talking about a Brett Favre situation. At the end with Brett Favre, especially at the end of his Green Bay tenure, I know he had a good year with that Vikings team. Brett Favre was throwing 22 interceptions a season, right? That's why when people talk about the drama of Aaron Rodgers, the drama of Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers just won 2 MVPs. Aaron Rodgers throws like 4 interceptions a year. Tom Brady was the front runner for MVP this past year until he fell off. I think he threw for like 5,000 yards. I mean, his passing numbers were as good as they've ever been at the age of 44. He's going to turn 45 years old this August. I looked it up earlier today. That's insane.
That's insanity. It's insane. There's no, I mean, you can't explain, he's insane. Can we just call him insane? And he wants to come back, 45 years old. Can you imagine taking a hit from a DN full speed? I don't.
But that's the other part of this. So we were talking about this on the radio this morning. We all know football is a very, very violent collision sport. But if you're Tom Brady, you get to training camp, you wear a red jersey for the whole camp. Nobody touches you. You probably don't play in one preseason game.
No way.
And you get to the regular season. I know Tom Brady had the one bad injury years ago when Matt Castle came in. But Tom Brady doesn't get hit because you know why? He knows he's not nimble. He knows he doesn't have a lot of escapability. So what happens? If there's a free rusher on Tom Brady, what does he do? He throws the ball at the dude's feet. He's like, whatever. So Tom Brady's 45, but I mean, he's malleable. His arm still looks good. He does the weird not weird, but whatever he does with TB12 with flexibility, I mean, he still looks like he can throw a missile. So for him, it's probably not that taxing on his body relative to like back in the day when you're doing 2-a-days and you're getting crushed on AstroTurf.
I mean, it's fair. And I would do the exact same thing, and I remember Peyton Manning doing it a lot too at the end of his career, just the crumble. Do you remember the crumble? Like, guy, he sees the guy and just falls and shelters in place. Like, fantastic. I would do that all day long.
That's the move. Do that, throw a couple touchdowns and I'm sure he's going to make what? 30 million, whatever he's making. It's going to be a lot.
30, 40 million.
Yeah.
All right. Let's stay NFL for a second here. I want to talk about Calvin Ridley. So it's been about a week since this came out. For those of you that don't know, I mean, the gist of it is when he was out, apparently he was betting, and we double checked it, but apparently the rule for NFL is the players can bet on sports, obviously just not the NFL. They can't bet on their sport. And he bet on his sport. He put some parlays, shout out to parlays. And he's saying it was only like $1,000, $1,500, whatever. And then there's some stir that, maybe it was a little more, it was a few more grand. The NFL comes back with a 1-year suspension. And the other article I was reading saying, well, he was betting more like 30, 40 grand, which sounds more like NFL type money, but those were on other sports. Is the penalty is 1 year. And I know you're a baseball guy, so parlay this into Pete Rose, please. But 1 year NFL, is that fair? Should it be longer? Should it be way less? What's your thoughts?
I'm okay with the suspension. And I also like that. Hey, I don't have a gambling problem. I bet on Brazilian Highlight, but I have a guy. It's all good. I think the argument that folks make, and I've even made this argument, but it's probably not as relevant as people will bring up other punishments in the NFL. For example, this guy only got 2 games, 4 games, 6 games for, let's say, domestic violence, for whatever other infraction that clearly is worse from a, and I shouldn't have done air quotes. It is worse.
Yeah.
I did it again by accident. I don't know what I'm doing, but
you love,
it's
dude,
worse.
you love air quotes. Ever since I've known you, you love air quotes. You love them.
I'm the air quotes guy, but it's clearly worse from a criminal standpoint. Obviously, domestic violence, sexual assault, whatever else where the NFL has punished folks less. But I think it's a different argument because we're talking about the integrity of competition. And if your competition is not Trump tight, in the sense, if anybody's thinking that any player has any type of influence gambling, and by the way, I don't think that Calvin Ridley did. And the investigation came out and said, hey, it wasn't inside information. It wasn't shaving points. He's just a dude that bet on his team. But I feel like you can't even have the cloud of suspicion about anybody who, I'm going to make a bet because I know that our guys are going to be inactive, or I know Matt Ryan is real banged up and his ankle is just screwed up, but he's playing, right? And so that's where what's more interesting to me is, so Calvin Ridley 1 year, I think that makes sense. But then you have Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, who basically, allegedly offered Brian Flores $100K per game to lose. Now, we all know tanking is a thing. It's happened. If you can get the number one pick, and if it's back in the day, if it's Peyton Manning or when it was Andrew Luck, it makes sense to do that. But for an owner to potentially bribe, there's the air quotes again, to bribe a coach for $100K, isn't that also affecting the outcome? So if Calvin Ridley, to me, gets a year, what do you do to this owner, right? I mean, are you going to force him to sell the team? Because that's the same thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with it. I mean, the answer is not going to do anything because he's an owner. So he'll deny it. He'll hire 15 lawyers to sandwich in between him and that conversation. And then it'll go away. It'll absolutely go away. I think the first point is probably the most interesting to me. It's the comparison thing with the fines, because violence, true crimes, even steroids, if we want to go there, guys get hit with positive tests, and what is it? It's a 4-6 game, something like that. I mean, you talk about affecting the game if you're on steroids versus not. I just struggle with these penalties. And I know it's the idea of all or none, in the sense that, well, he violated it, he bet on his sport. But I do think there is a difference of $1,000 or a couple $1,000 and putting 200 grand on the Falcons. There just is, for insider trading, if you go to court and you're like, I bought 1 share of Apple based on the information I got, and I shouldn't have had it, I know it would be a different penalty than if you said, well, I bought 200,000 shares of Apple. Right? This is how we do things. Everything is relative to how much potential gain, loss, influence, whatever. So I don't like it. I think you got to get it down to the 4-6 game mark. And then you can definitely do a 2-strike, 3-strike scenario. Second time you're out for a year and a half, third time you're out of the game, whatever. I just hate the year. He's a young guy. He's a promising talent, and I know people are like, well, that shouldn't matter. Yeah, but it does, because that's how the league moves. I mean, so to me, it's like you take him out for a year. I don't like it, because the guy, in the next locker who did steroids, maybe for years, finally gets busted. He misses 6 games. How would that make any sense? So I don't like it. I say 4 to 6 games.
You've actually convinced me now to come over to your side of this, because
yes,
I do think the degree matters. It's just like, look, there's murder, 1st degree, 2nd degree, 3rd degree. There's manslaughter, right? Now, that's probably not the greatest comparison from what I'm about to say here. But again, if it was $500,000, if it was point shaving, at that point, you probably ban him for life, honestly, because the intent is to actually influence the outcome of the game. So I do think intent here should matter. When you have a dude who's betting on his team to win, by the way, Atlanta's terrible, and he's betting, let's say it really was $1,500 on an 8-legged parlay, which has 0% chance of hitting.
That's the other part. I think as I'm going to say, I'm his defense lawyer. That's a critical part of this. He didn't take some inside information and go heavy on a straight up play. He sandwiched it. He buried it with a 7 other team play on the same ticket. I mean, if there's not a better defense for how not serious he was about, all these things having to be true. Come on.
Yeah, that's the perfect argument. If you're his defense lawyer, you're going to tell him beforehand, look, dude, I'm not going to make you look good here, but my whole defense is that you're kind of dumb and you don't know what you're doing. Like, my defense is, excuse me, jury, any of you guys gamble? Yeah, you do. Okay, Jim, how dumb is it? I mean, think about this. How dumb is it to do a 2-legged parlay, 4-legged parlay? This dude was doing an 8-legged parlay. He has no idea what he's doing. You can just basically cry dumb.
You could pull me in as not even a character witness, but as a gambling witness, and just interview me and go, so is it true you like to place parlays? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Great. Have you ever placed a 16 parlay? Yes, I have. Have you ever placed an 18? Yes, I have. Have you ever hit an 18 parlay? No, I have not. Have you ever hit a 6-teamer? I cannot recall. What parlays have you hit? A couple of years ago, I hit a 4-teamer. About 6 years ago, I hit a 3-teamer. You'd be like, all right, that's it. See, that guy's an idiot. Calvin was being an idiot as well. Case closed.
I like that. Makes
all
sense.
Right, buddy. Let's, before we wrap this up, and for those listening, thank you for listening. Number one, if you are listening, like, YouTube, if you're watching the videos, or if you're finding us through Instagram, whatever, I'm going to do that move. I'm going to say, throw us a comment, a like, a review, because, we got a little steam going. We're 9 weeks in here, and we're going to keep going. So tell us what you like, save the negative comments because we don't care. And then thanks for subscribing and listening. But all right, March Madness in Vegas. So I am headed out there Thursday. I'll like I said, I'm a screenshot picks. I'll start throwing them up on Instagram, whatever. We'll talk when I get back. We'll be a couple days delayed, right? You got a couple things going on. So we'll get an episode in next week. It just won't be towards the end of the week. So for those of you that look for these to pop up like Monday, Tuesday, it'll probably be like Thursday, Friday. Now with that said, Charlie, you have been to many a March Madness. How would you describe if I'm like from another planet? Okay. And I'm arriving and I said, I don't know anything about your culture, but I'm going to March Madness. What should I expect?
In Vegas, you're saying?
That's correct.
In Vegas. Well, so you and I don't know how many March Madnesses we've spent together in Vegas. Maybe what, 3, 4, 5, or a decent amount, I feel like. A
decent amount. It's at least 3.
Yeah.
It could be loosely 5 or 6, depending on, in early days, maybe we didn't know each other as well. And then, one of those things where you're like, I was there, I was on that trip. And I'm like, I was on that trip too.
I was passed out in the hotel room the whole time. So, okay, this is a good question because I feel like we made the Vegas trips really fun. And when I go to Vegas, I'm not all about gambling, but I want to do a lot of gambling. But so the Vegas trips, especially when you leave a place like St. Louis in March and you can go to Vegas and the pools are open. So you're hitting the pools, you're hitting the clubs at night, but definitely you got to get there for the Thursday, Friday. To me, the best day of sports arguably is the first Thursday and Friday of March Madness. So, a couple years we had the deal where I think one year we were in a smaller sports book. Another year, I think it was at Planet Hollywood where maybe they had a whole ballroom and they turned that ballroom into huge monitors, huge tables, and they had all you can eat, all you can drink beer with like hot dog type foods and stuff like that. So to me, like, even though I'm not a good gambler, I think I'm okay. I try, I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit. Not to say I'm a great gambler, but I feel like over the course of time, can I hover around 500, win a couple years, lose a couple years, but not lose my ass. So I still want to do it. I still enjoy doing it. I feel like I can pull that off. However, when I get to Vegas, something about me doesn't really care anymore about betting smart. Like you want the team play. You want to bet on every game, by the way, because if you're watching 4 monitors, you want action on everything. So you're betting stupid stuff. You're betting spreads of 42 points, which makes no sense, where you're just betting based on, will that guy pull his starters in an 89 to 47 game with a minute left. It's so dumb. It makes no sense. If you were sober or if you were at home, you would never make that bet. But there's something about being in Vegas with your boys, drinking beers, and you're watching the monitors that you just want to throw stuff out there.
Yeah, you want to be involved because the energy is high. I would describe it to someone who's never even been around something. It's first of all, it's dude's night out. Okay, it is anything from 20 years old to 70 years old, 80 years old. It is just flooded with guys. It's like guys. What's funny is if you go by demographic, it's those are the differences, right? So when you're in your 20s and 30s, generally the single people, right? It's looking for, the pool party scenes, definitely you're going into clubs and all that. When you get into my bracket in the early 40s, now it's, we've got kids. So now it's like, yeah, you're excited about it. I mean, we also been around the block a few times. Okay. And I don't quite have the stamina I used to. So it's showing up, it's getting those reserved watch parties. Cause right. Like I need things reserved. I'm not sitting in, general admission, waiting in lines for things. Like I can't tolerate that anymore. So it's like your watch parties, it's more dinners. My buddies like already talking about dinners. I'm like, I'm genuinely excited about that. Right. Dinners where before you're like, oh, we'll just eat as it comes, and then nighttime it's not going to be the same kind of nighttime, but I don't want it to be, it's going to be more about where to watch the games and hang out and just kind of, you don't really develop the plans like you used to, where it's like, oh, well, here's the 2-3 nights and every night has to be filled with an agenda. Now I'm like, I'm going to show up and we'll just see what's happening at 8:00. I mean, I can't guarantee you that, you're going to see me past 11 or 12. Let's be fair. But if you do, it's a surprise. It's probably a surprise just as much to me as it is to you if you see me at that hour.
Yeah. I do think, especially NCAA tournament though, you gotta be, whether it's the ballroom, the sports book, and I don't know what the new, is it Circa Flora, whatever that, have you seen the picture of the new hotel, whatever it is? And they have,
so it's downtown Vegas.
Cool. Yeah.
I didn't check it out the last time I was there a few months ago. Maybe I will this trip. But right, they built their like mid upper deck there is just a giant resort, more than resort size pool with, the jumbo Megatron thing that is full of screens and it's, you could sit in waist deep water and watch
urine. That's urine.
You're great. Why did I even say water? Have you ever seen a mix of urine and Bud Light that's somehow blue? That's amazing. So you can sit there and watch sports. So it's an unbelievable setup, and a great idea. And to your point about making the bets, it is because first of all, it's information overload, it's sensory overload. There's so many games going on, and it's great to have a piece of all the games. And this is why you parlay with 8 teams, and I'm throwing in first half unders and all these things. And then you're stubborn too. So if your first half bet didn't go the way, well, I better be right. So I'm going to double in on the second half. And it's all the chaos. It's all the confusion, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, that's the fun of it. And if you can stay within your bankroll, and that's the key, if you can show up going, hey, I'm willing to, for entertainment purposes, part ways with this. And if you can stick with it, then you're a winner. Then you're an absolute winner. It's the guys that extend. It's the guys that hit the ATM at 3:30 in the morning. Never a good idea. Those are the guys that take the remorseful Sunday flight home. Those you never want. Just don't be that guy. I think that's the key. Regardless of your age, your space in life. Now I'm preaching, but just don't be that guy. Just stay within that wad. Whatever. Where you pull it out in cash, you say, "This is all I got." Once it's gone, it's gone. I think then you're a winner leaving Vegas. That's my opinion.
And there's something just, there's that unique Vegas experience where let's say you're at a pool, but the game's on and everybody's drinking. And then there's a game, there's a great ending and people are cheering. And then you look over and you see like 2 tattooed people from Jersey and Von Dutch hats. And you're saying, are they actually having intercourse in the pool? What's going on over there? But then you're watching the game. It's sensory overload.
Yeah.
And it's something you really can only get in Vegas. And in a weird way, I would rather be in Vegas than at the game. I would rather be watching all the games from Vegas than be at the actual NCAA tournament. And I've got I think I covered 3 NCAA tournaments for St. Louis U back in the day. They got to 3 straight tournaments, and it was a lot of fun, but it's more fun to be in Vegas drinking, having fun with your buddies, and watching and gambling on all the games.
Yeah. That is 1,000%. 1,000%. You know what I mean? And by the way, we're now sponsored by Von Dutch. So good shout out there. That's 1,000% because it's because of all those things. It's like, and you know how some people like, I've talked to people that are like, oh, I don't like Vegas, or, oh, you know, I went a few times in my 20s. I don't like it. And that's fair. You know, you don't have to like what I like, but maybe I'm emotionally undeveloped, or I have a childlike mentality. I still like it. I can't picture a time I wouldn't like it. I'm not gonna act the same way when I was 22. Don't get me wrong, but this idea that like all of a sudden I wouldn't like something that I've gone to that many times, you know, I'll be the 60-year-old guy. You know what I'm saying? And I'll have my own little area. You know, hopefully some kind of rope protection around me. So so the Von Dutch people aren't rubbing into me. You know, that's the thing I don't like. I don't want physical contact with strangers like that. But the rest of it, I'm gonna keep going. Will you keep going?
100%. And anybody that says, okay, first of all, if you say you're too old for it, you're just being like a Debbie Downer, because again, it evolves. That doesn't mean you have to go to every club and every pool when you're 60, like you did when you're 25. And now I know you live in Florida, so you have nicer weather. But if you come from anywhere in the country, St. Louis, Ohio, that's where I'm from, wherever, if you can go to Las Vegas, Nevada in March, where you can be outside getting sun, being in the pool, drinking with your friends. Oh, by the way, they do have great restaurants if you want to spin off to doing that at night, and you want to go see a show. The one year we saw Absinthe, which was absolutely freaking hilarious.
That's a great show.
I don't care if you're 50, 60, 70. Why would you not want to do that? I'm not saying you're doing the same type of craziness as your 20s, but I would want to go to the NCAA tournament basically until I die in Vegas.
Yeah, that's a good PSA. Like if you're 68 and you're going this weekend, like you don't have to go to Hakkasan, you know, and get a table. Like no one's making you do that. So you can lay off that part. But look, I think we've said our piece. We're obviously we're pro Vegas guys. Like we're big Vegas fans. I may bump into our good mutual friend, Todd Furman out there. So Todd, if you're listening, I look forward to hearing your picks and betting the other way. All right. So Charlie, before we
hold on real quick though, real quick.
Yes, go.
Quick Todd Furman nugget, because I had him on our other YouTube channel, which is Kenny Wallace, the former NASCAR driver, has a very, very successful YouTube channel that we're doing. So if you want to comment, like, and subscribe that one. And I actually had Todd Furman on a couple of weeks back to talk specifically about NASCAR gambling. I mean, this dude, whether it's NASCAR, golf, he's got all the numbers. And this is where, if Todd's watching, he's probably not. This is where I love Todd. But here's the thing I don't like about Todd. And I'll say this to his face. He's so smart. He knows how to gamble so much, but he's so disciplined. Like earlier, I said how I go to Vegas and make stupid bets that I would never make sober and I would never make from my house. And we've sat there with Furman. He doesn't gamble on anything.
No,
we're making all the bets. He's like, no, I got to wait until the Oregon line gets to a certain point because he's so smart. I'm like, dude, will you please just get drunk and make a stupid bet on Longwood versus Tennessee?
Yeah. You got to remember but that's why I could not agree more. This guy used to set the odds. He's an odds maker. He knows that much about how the real betting action works. You know, me and you are still the old, like, it's cold, it's going to be a low scoring game, you know, like with our old folklore analysis, you know. He doesn't do that. What he literally does, he waits for the 1-2 small opportunities where he feels like either the line has moved a certain way, creating an edge, and then he wants to get that favorable spread, and he'll 1 or 2 games. Certainly not parlay. Don't even say the P word around him. But that's how he's going to pick his move. And then you and I know he's more than a 50% win rate, but he just doesn't go. He's not a high volume guy, nor really in theory, nor should you be. But that's why we hate him so much. It's because it's like it's like the conservative guy who's making a good living and saving 30% of his annual income. And then, you know, we're we're not making as much, but one year we make more, and we spend it all on it, Range Rovers and and everything we can find. And then we're making less, and now we have nothing. I mean, that's the difference.
Damn him and his strong decision making consistently.
I know. I certainly don't have it. All right, Charlie, before I let you go and I start packing my bags, let's do this, because I'll share with everybody what I'm doing. Not that you should be tailing me. I'll say that, but I'm going to throw that down once I get there. I will not look at it till I get there and I see what's available to me, right? Because I'm not putting it down right now. So I'll wait till I show up on Thursday. Before the show, we said, well, let's pick something that typically is harder to pin, but happens. And that's the good old fashioned 12-5 upset.
Oh, the 12-5.
The 12-5. Okay. So we have not pre-show discussed who we're picking, but we did say we're going to pick a 12-5. Charlie, I'm going to go first, and I'm going to go New Mexico State over UConn.
Dude, you took mine. Here's what we do. Here's what we do with the tournament. And I said this before we press record. So I covered sports for 14 years. In theory, I still do on the radio. But for TV, we would show the highlights, or I'd go to a lot of these games, Mizzou and St. Louis U specifically the last several years. The second I left TV, I stopped watching college basketball. Illinois, they're kind of in our market, but they're pretty far away. St. Louis U's in the NIT. Mizzou just fired their coach. They didn't make the tournament. So you try to find one thing about any team. If you know one player, so randomly there's a kid that used to go to Mizzou, Mario McKinney, and he plays for New Mexico State. And so that was the sole reason I was going to choose New Mexico State. In the same sense, there was somebody else for another school that I knew one player. I think is Florida State in the tournament, whatever it is. So you stole mine. By the way, New Mexico State actually made it to a Final Four in like 1970. I looked this up. So
that I'm sorry. One? So that's why you picked New Mexico State.
Well, you look around, like the team Longwood. I like the fact that I've never heard of them. Longwood, are they new? Is this a new school that just went D1? I don't know.
The thing about the Longwoods of everybody is, right, you just don't know what you're getting. I mean, for all you know, they're going to play like a boxing one or something crazy. And you're like, like a weird, like inverted zone or just something bizarre. And you're like, what is it's like when you see, the Ivy League schools like Princeton, where literally all they do is pass and screen away the whole game from the top of the key. You're like, how annoying is this? But then they'll end up getting, multiple backdoor layups. And you're like, this is so infuriating to watch. But there's the tournament. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. 12-5 upset. If you're looking for one, New Mexico State over UConn. Charlie, unless you got anything else to add, I gotta get prepped for getting out there to Vegas and placing a lot of parlays. I have a lot of parlay research ahead of me.
Okay, I got to look this up real quick. I know we're trying to go, but I'm pretty sure that I actually watched New Mexico State lose to SLU in the first round of the NCAA tournament about 10 years ago. And I remember this because here it is. I just looked this up. New Mexico State had this dude named Sim Bular, who is 7'5", 360 pounds. And he played for New Mexico State from 2012 to 2014. And one of those years, St. Louis U beat them in the first round. So also that gets us back to the point of, if you know anything about any of these schools, if you just know one nugget, like you look at, Davidson. Yeah. Steph Curry played there 15 years ago. That's all I know about Davidson. So, hey, they're going to beat Michigan State. That's what we do. You find anything on this bracket. Oh, Providence. I flew in the airport there once, and then you pick them. That's what you do.
This is why we're pretty much known on the street for not my words, their words, top tier analysis, in quotes, of course. Yeah.
And by the way, I am going to promote. I've been lazy. I'm not gonna lie. I've been lazy. I need to promote these segments better on Twitter. And so I'm going to take the clip where you and I make fun of Todd Furman. That is going to be the promotional Twitter clip to link to the longer podcast.
Yeah, I think the general idea is like if we know you and you're like generally like a really good guy and a nice guy, then that's a fantastic person to sort of just go after. So
Yes.
I think it's smart. Yeah, it's really good.
And he has way more Twitter followers than both of us. So hopefully he retweets
Oh, 100%. That's all we're going for. Going for
it.
All right, buddy. I will talk to you. Well, I'll talk to you when I'm in Vegas, but officially on the podcast, end of next week is what we're looking at.
Have fun, buddy. Win
Thanks,
some
man.
bets. Maybe I'll text you to throw down a bet, and then you'll forget only if I lose, right? Or
That's
maybe
correct.
you'll place it. And then wait, if I win, you'll say, oh, I forgot to place it, something like that.
If you've given me the cash, there's a lot of ways to scam you, but yeah, you get the general idea.
Awesome, buddy. Have fun.
All right, man. Talk to you.